Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast presented by Zwift. Tour of Autopia on at the moment. More on that later. Here with Benji for Paris Stage 8 and Tirreno Adriatico Stage 7 recaps. Paris first because this was, as it always is, one of the best stages to watch of the year. And it proves you don't need long stages to have exciting racing. 115 k's long, medium mountain all day. They have it's all 6k, 6%. Then they have the Côte de Pel, 6.5%, 7% descent through La Turbie. And then the Col d'Ez, the final one, 6.1 k's, 7.6% before a descent finish into Nice. Roglic 47 seconds ahead of Yates starting the stage. Danny Martinez in third, a little bit further behind on 1 minute. Adam Yates on 150, Quintana on 2:04. So, first surprise of the day, Benji. Jumbo were kind of hard pacing and a break didn't go. I thought they'd want those bonus seconds gone.
Yeah, there were quite some attacks early on the stage on the initial climbs, as expected in a short stage like this. Plenty of people wanting to win the stage, and plenty of people trying to use the profiles to their advantage when they have a leader. So they'll try and send some riders up there and so forth. We saw attacks by plenty of people, but I do want to note that Gaudu finally gave up on starting Paris-Nice, so that's a W, I'd argue, considering we've been complaining a lot this week that he was starting when he shouldn't have. Nonetheless, Wout van Aert was already pulling on the initial climb, trying to crawl back, attacks, and so forth. And at a certain point, he was reported to be attacking, but we didn't see any of that because it was simply not on TV yet. Reports that Jumbo kept control. Plenty of people tried to attack, but it just went from Van Aert pulling at the start of the stage to Kruijswijk pulling at a certain point, and it really started kicking off the second time we reached the what is the name of that climb? The Côte de Paix, the one we expected it to kick off on yesterday in our preview of it, with about roughly 50k to go in the stage. That's where I expected action and plenty of people did. Now, Latour dropped off the back just before that, probably a mechanical or something, because we noticed during our months of research on the topic that he didn't have a number on his saddle, so he probably had to switch his bike during that moment. He was on the back, so was trying to come back, but it was Jumbo that once again was controlling the initial part of the climb with Kruijswijk and so forth. Then it went to Dennis, and once it went to Dennis, it looked like Ineos was taking off with Freile, right?
Yeah, so that kind of helped Ineos because they're very light on domestiques here that can perform, and Freiler's the only one really for Yates, Adam Yates and Martinez, and Freiler gets on tricky descents, a buff on this sort of area, rainy conditions, cold, insane rider in these conditions in medium mountain, the Basque rider. So he was setting a hard pace. All of a sudden, the peloton is 20 riders. It's just been thinned out to nothing. Riders are dropping off the back, and we've still got 50 Ks to go in this stage. If you don't know, Zwift have the Tour of Autopia on at the moment. It's 5 stages. If you want to check it out and participate in that Tour of Autopia, the online fantasy world in Zwift, just one of them, you can check it out at the link down below for a 7-day free trial. We will have the Milano Sanremo Zwift LRCP ride along, watch along next Saturday. Further details to come. Thanks to Zwift for supporting the podcast. But yeah, Côte de Paix, it was, I think, Danny Martinez attacking off Freiler's pace, and suddenly we had a group of 5. And who was in there, Benji?
Well, we noticed that Martinez was making that early move, and we saw that, one domestique of Jumbo was left, and it honestly was Quintana that seemed to be the first one responding for a little bit, until he realized that Wout was still there, because he looked besides him and saw Wout and then stopped doing the tempo. So Wout went to the front and kept the pace up for that group, brought back that attack by Martinez, but like you said, only a few people were left in that group, and that included the likes of Wout, Roglic, also Quintana, also Simon Yates, and Danny Martinez. So who's off the back? Adam Yates. And that's where we could ask questions. Is that a good thing for Ineos to lighten up the race at this moment? My personal opinion, I think that they're a team that has a 40 million euro budget. So if you're second in Paris-Nice, you're going to try and win Ineos. You're going to try and win Paris-Nice, even if it loses you the second and fifth spot.
Yeah, I think the only thing they might have done differently was to attack first with Adam Yates, but he actually paced for a little bit, I think, beforehand. So I think he knew he wasn't going to have his best day. Strong attack from Martinez, and it confirms that Wout was doing his own tempo on previous mountain stages. If he's here with the four best GC guys, Quintana, Simon Yates, Roglic, and Martinez, and he's there easily, and he just shuts this climb down completely. There's nothing those guys can do. Yates is 47 seconds before this stage behind Roglic on GC. Quintana, I think, just wants the podium, so he's not going to work. And yeah, Wout just shuts it down on the climb. Roglic was pulling a little bit before. Don't think they really needed to do that. And then they get onto the descent, and boy, things started happening on the descent after this climb. By the way, the group behind, gone. Forget about them. With Yates and Haig and Bahrain and McNulty, gone. They're going to be a minute plus behind. The descent, technical, wet. There's bollards. Roglic nearly went the wrong way a couple of times when he was getting undressed. I was white-knuckling on my sofa watching this. You have to go and watch the last 45 kilometers of this stage. There's an intermediate sprint. Simon Yates goes for the 3 seconds. Roglic doesn't react, and neither can Quintana, and Simon Yates takes the 3 seconds. I was like, why?
But Wout takes the third spot. And what does Wout do? He secures the points classification at that point. The green jersey is his.
Yeah. I thought it was kind of irrelevant at that point. I was like, all right, do you, Simon Felipe. And it turned out to be a big deal, and every second counting. Because on that descent, Martinez, by the way, can someone listen? Public service announcement to all World Tour professionals: don't sit on Danny Martinez's wheel on descents, particularly wet ones around Nice. Like Simon Yates was sitting on his wheel. I'm like, mate, you're going to end your career here. Just move up. Quintana knows. Don't sit there. Anyway, Martinez was losing wheels. Eventually, don't know what he hit. He has a rear wheel puncture, and he has to have the rear wheel change. Disc brake takes a while, and then he's sitting in no man's land, which was a waste of time. I think he cost himself here, chasing on this descent whilst you've got 75 kilo Wout pacing. When there's the group behind with Frailer and Adam Yates and Haig and Poles for Bahrain pacing. So that's really unfortunate for Martinez. He looked very, very strong the last 2 days, perhaps almost as strong as Yates uphill. Puncture out of the race. We get to Col d'Ez, Quintana. I don't know. I couldn't tell Benji whether Quintana was going for the stage. It doesn't make sense, right? Because if he's pacing, because Martinez is a minute 4 ahead of him on GC, so shouldn't he just steady pace with Wout to try and grow that gap out?
I think he was trying to steady pace, but the pace wasn't necessarily the tempo that is necessary to keep Wout at the back at that point. But he did make a bit of a move that looked like it made Wout struggle, because Wout went to the back of the group and started grimacing for a second. And at that point, I was like, okay, Wout did a great stage so far. It's nearly time. I think it's almost the end of Wout van Aert at this point in the race. And we see Quintana move forward, and then suddenly Quintana slows down a bit. I'm not sure, like you say, I'm not sure what the reasoning was behind that. Either you're riding for third so you have more UCI points, or for the stage, if you ride for third, you do that steady pace like you mentioned. But this was a bit all over the place when it comes to speeding up, slowing again, and therefore Wout just passed everybody again and started pacing at the front again. And it really took until the next attack of Simon Yates to really spicing up things on this climb. And that next attack was not the ultimate one, to be honest. He made a move, and the weird thing there is that at that moment, I think it was Simon Yates that was reacting first to Quintana. And we saw Wout dropping, and we saw that Roglic kept a bit of a gap on Simon Yates' wheel, and I was like, that's weird. Like on Quintana's wheel. So there was a gap there, and I was like, on paper, in a race like this, I'd argue that Roglic is in the wheel of Quintana instantly at this point in the race. And perhaps is even the person responding to Simon Yates in the first place, and not Quintana. So I thought something was off, but I was like, nah, copium, we need a competitor for Pogacar in the Tour de France. I can't think about this. This is not allowed. Roglic is not allowed to show weakness today for the Tour de France in the future. And then the next attack, well, was Simon Yates once again. And that was a stronger one, right?
Yeah, Simon Yates always does a hard 30-second burst and then settles in, kind of similar to Pogacar, actually. And we saw Roglic, the elbows were flat out. It was almost a bit. It wasn't planche de Belfi like, but he didn't look comfortable like he would on the Vuelta steep sections back in like 2019. He wasn't looking great, wasn't reacting. I thought maybe he's just letting Quintana pace him back, but eventually I was like, he's going to have to close this soon. It's at 15 seconds, 17 seconds on Col d'Ez. Yates needs to take 40 seconds on the road to win GC because of the 3 bonus seconds he took at the intermediate sprint. Wout's dropped a little bit behind them, but Roglic doesn't respond, and he actually has to wait. And it's Wout pacing the last 3.5 kilometers of Col d'Ez when it's not as steep at the same speed as Simon Yates. Incredible performance. Because Yates took that 25, gapped everyone, everyone's on the limit. But then Wout did that last 10 minutes, same pace. But
Drop Nairo.
He dropped Nairo. Is ridiculous performance. And Roglic, like, he was gapping Roglic off his wheel. It was insane. What percentage at that point, Col d'Ez, Roglic looking not good, did you think Yates is taking this?
The stage, I think it was still 50-50, because if they can keep the gap on 20 seconds on the climb or something, I was like, there's a descent coming, a flat section of 2 kilometers after that descent. We know that Van Aert and Roglic are relatively good descenders. We also know that Yates is a good descender, but 1v2, usually you've got the advantage. But it was going to be close, I'd argue. And I think that there's this key moment right here where Wout is actively slowing down the climbing to keep Roglic in the wheel. And this might actually play a role on the outcome of this stage, in my personal opinion, but I'll get to that later. Once we get over the climb, it's roughly, 24, 23 seconds between Yates and the duo behind. And I thought, okay, it's still possible that they catch up and that Wout still wins the stage, because I'd argue that Roglic would probably be giving the sprint option to Wout if they catch up. That's at least how I saw it in my head. And they started to descend, and Simon Yates was taking such risky lines in descent, was going all out through every corner, compared to Wout and Roglic, who I'd argue that were taking it slower through corners. And especially Roglic. When Roglic was at the front, it was slower than when Van Aert was at the front, and that's during the technical corners. And when it comes to these straight runs, that's when it started becoming Wout's territory again. So the gap went up and down and up and down. And at a certain point, it went to 28 seconds again in descent, to then drop back straight to 11 seconds. So my nails are gone after the stage. So intense. And we came to the last 3 kilometers, and how much was left? 11 seconds, something like that?
11 seconds. And I think Roglic and Wout were pretty done. Simon Yates, incredible descent. Wout being there on the descent, I think Roglic loses GC without Wout.
100%.
I think gone. It almost happened again. I can't believe it. Losing GC on the final day of Paris-Nice, these tricky stages. Simon Yates himself lost GC on the last stage, I think, to Marc Soler back in the day, and now he's doing it to Roglic. It was so tense, as Benji said. And without Wout's big body on the descent pacing, where there's a lot of pedaling, I think Roglic loses 40 seconds plus. So they don't end up catching up to Yates. He takes a well-deserved stage victory for Bike Exchange Jayco, gives the biggest fright of Jumbo-Visma's life this year. They end up second. Comfy. It looks comfy in the results. Just 9 seconds after Yates, with Wout and Roglic second and third. But Wout brought that down a lot. McNulty led in the group behind on 144 with SKA Kung. Unbelievable performance from Kung. Sixth. Paddy Pancho, Adam Yates, Poles, Asgira Haig. So GC-wise, it looks boring if you look at the results. No order changed in the first 6. Roglic wins GC 29 seconds ahead of Yates. Martinez keeps third. Then it's Adam Yates, Quintana, Haig. No changes there. Latour, the big loser of the day, moving from 8th to 14th. And Izagirre, Almeida, Martin, Parry Pancho rounding out the top 10. But unbelievable stage. And I still don't know how you stop this happening to Roglic. If it's fueling, I don't know what it is.
Is it perhaps chaotic medium mountain stage? We've seen it a few times with him. He's also benefited once from a chaotic medium mountain stage at the end of Itzulia, but that was more sunny weather compared to rainy weather. We saw Formigal in the Vuelta 2 years ago, the rain jacket gate moment, also a chaotic medium mountain stage. It saw perhaps that aspect, but I also want to add in, while you said that Roglic won this thanks to Wout van Aert 100%, but Wout would 100% have won this stage if it wasn't for Roglic, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I think he probably had to wait a fair bit on the climb and the descent.
But worthy trade-off, I'd argue, based on winning GC, having the green jersey. I don't think even Wout will probably be a bit sad that he doesn't win the stage, but I think the team will be happy that they secured this Pyrenees, and they should be happy that they secured DGC in this race. To be honest, do we learn something from this Pyrenees performance when it comes to the team of Jumbo?
Let the break go. Let the break go. Take those bonus seconds. Every second counts. And they know that, I think. You remember from last year, you think everything can look sunny and fine on stage 4. I remember last year on Shrub, Roglic taking all these stages. Every second can count. When shit hits the fan, Laporte, when Roglic gifted the stage to Laporte, there's 4 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, I think there is a real tension where that Sky didn't have, and that's a problem Jumbo have. Wout is incredible. Saved GC today, but Froome doesn't give Kwiatkowski that stage that Roglic gifted Laporte. I don't think. Yep. If there's Contador behind, they're like killer mindset every second for Froome, and I think they need to have that mentality for definitely the Tour de France. I know it's Pyrenees, but for the Tour, and I think Dauphiné, if Roglic is doing that, every second for Roglic, you need to be a GC-focused team first. But that's hard, as we said, because Wout's a superstar, and he should be allowed to go for green as well. So it's, I don't know, what do you think? Like, imagine if Roglic lost GC because he gifted Laporte the stage.
That would have been huge. It would have been hilarious as well, but that would have been huge. I think that it still probably has a positive outcome on the team aspect then, because we repeated on the Laporte stage. Gifting that stage to Laporte makes you certain that he's going to give his all on every single bloody stage for you the entire year, because that matters a lot for a Frenchman in Pyrenees. And I think that getting second in Pyrenees probably sucks for Roglic if that happens again. But I think the value of having Laporte as an ultimate domestique is also valuable in that aspect, honestly. When it comes to other good domestiques in the stage, I want to give a shiny light on Fred Wright, because he was the one pacing the entire time in the second group with Haig and Pouls doing lots of work for them. And he came eventually like on 9 minutes and so forth, so he probably dropped towards the top of Col d'Huez, but he did so much work in this stage that, honestly, he's been outrageously good this year as well. A bit on the background though, but at some point this man is going to break out, I think.
He's very, very good all-around bike rider. That's why he's going to be in their Tour de France squad. Don't be surprised if you see him in Group 1 on one of the Danish stages. You'll be like, what the fuck? Like, it'll be Pedersen, Van Aert and co. And it'll be like, Fred Wright could be there with Colbrelli. He's a serious rider. I want to also shout out, we mentioned him again, Freyler. What a pickup. Looking so good for Ineos. Yeah. He was their best domestique this week. I think, I don't know what races he's planning on doing, but he was unreal. I do think, one thing we haven't mentioned, Benji, Martinez puncture. Did that hurt or hinder Yates?
I think that...
Or hurt or
I think
help?
I don't think it matters as much necessarily. I think that Martinez would have probably been able to follow the Simon Yates attack, I dare to say. But I only think he would be able to help on the climb itself. because knowing Martinez is descending, he would be dropped instantly on the technical parts of that descent and would not be able to help out Yates there. So I think he would have been a block on the leg of Yates in the descent, while he would have been able to extend the gap a bit more on the climb. I don't think it would have mattered.
And also, Martinez wanted to win GC, I think. So he
Yeah.
was 15 seconds behind Yates. Would that have introduced a finessing element? And they only beat Wout van Aert by 9 seconds, and that was Simon Yates' 100% commitment. Maybe it actually would have harmed Yates to have another competitor there with a bit of games going on. And as Benji said, Martinez can't help on the descent. Would he have? Maybe he would have helped on the climb and opened that gap up for Yates. I don't know. It's an interesting thought experiment. I do think Martinez is something I need to think about this week, what Ineos should do for the Tour. He looks very, very good. He's got a competent TT. There's a high altitude stage. The descending and handling is just the big issue. But
I agree, but I think that the Tour de France has the benefit of not having those technical descents that you have in the Giro sometimes. So perhaps that's the benefit there. You've got those large descents, like, what is it, the climb that is ahead of Granon? Is that Galibier or what is it?
Galibier, yeah.
Yeah, that's just a long descent, not the most technical one. So on paper, I'd argue that one should be doable for Martinez. But hey, I'm holding the table because I'm not sure about it.
Anyway, very, very exciting. Paris Stage 8. I think, Roglic takes, I think, his first ever World Tour GC win in France, in the country of France. Which,
really?
Yep.
Wow.
He's won UAE, Romandy, Vuelta. What else? Algarve. But he's never won a World Tour level GC race because he crashed out Dauphiné. He crashed out Paris last year and hasn't won the Tour. So got that bogey off his back, but still, I'm sure Jumbo will be thinking that was a bit close for comfort.
Last note. Commentator on Sporza, José de Cauer, ended the stage saying, there's only one leader in Jumbo and it's Wout. And the second commentator was quick enough to correct him, like, oh, come on, Roglic is a leader too. Come on.
Are we already doing the World Champs Imola thing?
It's crazy.
They're already doing the Roglic should have pulled for Wout in the World Champs thing. That is funny.
Oh, wonderful.
I mean, yeah, I think the Tour is gonna be interesting. But yeah,
it's also notable that today Wout was great, but he also rested up on the other stages compared to, rode more relaxed than Roglic, who went all out the entire stage. So I think that matters. The recovery between stages, the recovery in stages as an aspect as well, to the ability of Wout doing that today. I don't think he can do this every single day.
That's a good point. That's sort of a gain. You don't often see teams doing that during a Grand Tour. Do you cycle on and off domestiques? So
that
they should, I think, I know they had Koos last year. He seemed to come into his own. He was supposed to be good second, third week, and he wasn't there first week. That's really something to be like, okay, this stage, we don't need rest, and then you can be fresh for that stage. Yeah, that's a good point.
We saw that with, I think, Wout Poels back in the days in Team Sky, where in the early days he was not necessarily there too much, still building up fitness, while in the last week he would then be the rider while they had other people to take care of the earlier week. So I think that's a point that actually matters, and that some teams do that more than other teams.
Anyway, that was Paris Stage 8. Cracking finish as always, and encourage you to go and watch the stage if you have time. It's been an enjoyable stage for me or race for me and Benji to cover, and we'll move on to Tirreno now.